Hi, this is Werner Eriksen. I'm the CTO in a company called WorkingGroupTwo. We are building mobile core networks with the purpose of opening it up for innovation. And I'll share some of the ideas and the findings that we've made while doing so in this presentation. So I'll say a few words about the main traits of a mobile core network, some of the opportunities that we think are interesting in the network, and how we think that those are not necessarily harvested at the moment, what we propose to do about it, and I think one of the key things has been programmability, and I think we will reflect a bit on why we think, or what we learned about that not being enough to create and share real value. So the mobile network we think is quite amazing, and the intelligence and the brain of that mobile network is what's called the mobile core. It enables voice and messaging services, and as everyone knows, anyone can reach anyone in this network. You can bring your number across carriers or providers, and that kind of makes the telephony and the mobile networks, the largest social networks out there. Then access to internet services is now kind of the main driver for a lot of the innovation, I guess. So the connectivity is of course also important here. But what people tend to forget is that it's also a safety network where you are enabled emergency services by reaching them, and also they will be able to find you to some degree when you're in the mobile network. This is done in a fashion where you could travel across a country and keep a seamless experience, and also when roaming abroad. And finally, this is done in a way that you have authentication and security mechanisms for accessing the network. The gentleman on the picture is a Norwegian that is in the mountains testing the very first digital GSM-based phone. And in those days, that was a bit of a heavy endeavor. I guess his backpack there weighs about 10 kilos. Behind these amazing services, there are some things that we have found to be prohibiting innovation. And the first thing is that these networks tend to be very complex. If you look at the voice over LTE services is being produced by a system called IP Multimedia System, IMS. And the picture here is a view of all the different components required to enable basic calling. Another thing is that the way that mobile networks have been developed over the years has been good for many things, but when it comes to building new services, it seems like the innovation by committee way of doing things are not super efficient. There's a strict division by who builds boxes that someone integrates and operates, which makes it difficult to get real feedback from the day-to-day operations and back to whoever is building it. And change is very slow. Typically, there's a major change to the standards every 10 years or every G. And now we've come to 5G, where there's lots of new things, but it was 10 years since the last major overhaul. So it doesn't lend itself to iteration and bringing new things there. And in general, even though there have been attempts, I think most carriers are not able to expose a lot of the capabilities that you can find in the mobile network. So while most carriers have been focused on delivering on the basics like voice messaging and internet access. There are examples of companies that have delivered simplicity in terms of APIs and platforms for that, like Twilio and Sinch. And they've been able to extract quite a lot of value from basic voice and messaging services by wrapping them up in some APIs. And this is just showing a picture of the valuation of those companies compared to some fairly large carriers out there. So what we found was that near the carriers' networks, you have the device ecosystem where mobile app developers have access to a rich set of APIs. They can get access to a way of distributing their innovations and products. And they can also capture some of the value from the products that they build if they're successful. On the mobile network side, that has been a very different story. Very few carriers are able to provide the same set of APIs and distribution to developers at scale. And the value created from these mobile applications are quite huge. This is from a report indicating that it will almost be $1 trillion by 2023 US dollars, and we are soon reaching 3 million applications made available through the app stores of either Apple or Google. And many people today, I think, view the phone as a device to consume these applications rather than using it for the classic services. While you look at the ability for the carriers to build products or deliver products beyond the basics, I think I haven't found any real numbers, but I think it's much closer to zero than to $1 trillion. However, what we've seen and believe is that subscribers are willing and interested in getting more from their carrier than the basics. They like to personalize their experiences. They're also willing to pay for the value they can get from it. And I just found this article where we see that Verizon has an example of extending the reach of the mobile number to Alexa, and I assume they have found that there's willingness to pay for this. We also believe that there are innovators, developers that would like to create value. We have seen amongst those 3 million apps in the app stores that some apps are fantastic, most are maybe not, but the innovators are willing to take the risk and spend the energy to build great products. However, on the mobile core side, they haven't been able to either get access to the platforms, and there's lack of distribution. And finally, I think it's important that when you engage with the innovator, most of them would like to invest to capture some value from their investment. We have found that the mobile carriers, they are quite key to actually deliver more services and relevant service to the subscribers. But we also seen that they're not amazing innovators. That leaves them to compete on the basics. And I think the power of having thousands or hundreds of thousands of innovators building and iterating, that's very hard to beat for even the largest carriers. So given this, we have looked into what can be done to provide better selection and more interesting applications for the subscriber. And we want to enable those building those products to iterate faster and also be able to capture some of the value that they create if they deliver a successful product. And finally, by doing so, we can help the carrier to deliver a better experience for the subscriber. Unfortunately, what we found to be true is that the standard providers of the equipment, they have not been asked or not been able to deliver the required set of open functionalities or APIs for developers to take advantage of. And that has led us to actually rebuild the whole core network from the ground up in a way that makes these APIs readily available. And this is not a small undertaking given the previous mentioned complexity. I will not dive into the individual components here, but basically this is a simplified view of the nodes required to deliver the services that you know from a mobile carrier. And even though we found that building a mobile core network, opening up the APIs is a great thing, turns out it is not enough to deliver on the ambitions we had. So what we've seen is that to enable the innovators to deliver value to both the carrier and the subscriber, we need to work on what we call an ecosystem, where innovators can find a uniform set of APIs that enables them to distribute their applications across more than a single carrier, and for the mobile carrier to have a grand selection of applications that the subscriber can consume. To make this ecosystem work, there are quite a few dilemmas or things to consider. One of them is around value. So when value is created, the question is, how do you share it and how do you distribute it? Another interesting dilemma is, if a subscriber gets access to a product, who is supporting it if there's a problem with it or if there's a question about it? I think the carriers tend to be a little bit scared of the fact that an application can drive a lot of requests towards their support organization. The innovator probably would like to have direct access to the subscriber to resolve any issues. Another flavor of this contact is not necessarily about support, but more about extending or adding or learning about new asks from the subscribers. Again, the question is that direct? Is it indirect? And finally, the distribution of these new applications needs to be efficient for the innovator, and also the subscriber would like to get as much choice as possible. And again, this needs to be coordinated with the carrier. So to solve for these different asks, we have been building the ecosystem where the innovators have an entry point to get access to the APIs and the programmability. So anyone can sign up as a developer and get going exercising the APIs to build a product. When the innovator has built products and gone through the publishing process for those products, they will be made available to the subscribers through a kind of an app store. And the flow here is quite similar to the app stores that you probably know. Of course, the ability to get access to sensitive data on the subscriber and so on needs to be controlled. So there's a mechanism in the platform that allows the innovator to ask for certain permissions and for the subscriber to accept or deny access to sensitive information. Finally, the ecosystem platform provides access for the carrier to select amongst the various products and could choose to make bundles that they include in certain subscriptions. They can also filter out certain products that they, for some reason, find that they should not offer to their subscribers, so they have some control. And by enabling these various entry points to the platform, we hope to enable innovators to reach a broad set of subscribers through multiple carriers. And this is what we're rolling out these days. Finally, I'll say a few words about the background for our company. We were kind of born as a research project inside the Telenor around 2014, where we tried to build applications on the existing traditional stacks of this carrier. We ended up having to rebuild substantial parts of the network to enable the APIs we were looking for. And this was then established as a company and a spin-out in 2017, where we got Telenor as a backer and also Digital Alpha. In 2018, we actually launched with the first customer, which is a subsidiary of a company in the Telenor Group, where we're delivering an MVNO platform for a fighter brand. And later in the year, we signed agreements with an MVNE in Norway. And we have been adding APIs and also support for more Gs along the line. And in 2020, we started focusing and expanding on the ideas around the ecosystem. And we do now see that we have a platform that enables us to invite innovators. So if you have products, ideas, and want to try to build things, then we are super happy to meet you. And you can find more information about what we do at WorkingGroupTwo.com. And with that, I would say thank you very much. Also like to thank Al for inviting us to give you an update. Hope you enjoyed this rather sad setup where we have to do this at home. Look forward to meet you next year. Thank you.